It's time to get ready for week 3 of the fantasy football season. And of course, that starts with the running back position. Who can you trust now, and who is it time to just bench? We're going to help you out. We're going to go game by game and figure out who to start and who to sit. Let's start with the running backs who are still must starts. Keep these guys locked in your lineup. Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, Devon Achane, Kyron Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jordan Mason, and Josh Jacobs. Before we set those lineups for fantasy, let's also set your picks for Underdog. That's right, if you haven't tried Underdog yet, it's a great time to sign up. You can start with this free pick for week 3. It's Aaron Rodgers just going higher than 0.5 total yards on Thursday night. That's right, you get that free pick if you sign up right now as a new customer using code ENDGAME when you sign up. Take advantage of this new customer special and still that 50% deposit match up to $1,000 in bonus cash. If you haven't tried Underdog yet, go ahead and do it now. Just make sure you use code ENDGAME when you sign up. All right, let's start with that Thursday game. It's going to be the Patriots and the Jets divisional matchup here. Let's start with basically the everything for that New England offense. It's Ramondre Stevenson. Is he pretty close to a lineup lock now?
I mean, he's got to be. How do you sit Ramondre Stevenson unless you have two of those guys you already mentioned as must starts? I mean, I know you see the Jets, you think tough matchup, but this Jets defense has gotten off to a slow start this year. If I got Ramondre Stevenson, unless again I have two of those guys you already mentioned, I'm definitely starting him.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to chase the touches, the opportunities here. Ramondre is getting the vast majority. He's looked really good. We were in on him in draft season, still in on him. And if anything, I might be even more in on him right now from what I've seen. But do we now have to consider another Patriots running back? That's right, remember Antonio Gibson? He's in New England, and he looked pretty good in week 2, ripped off a couple of big runs, and in fact, he actually outrushed Ramondre Stevenson. But are you ready to trust him as an RB2, a flex?
I think I would be willing to trust him as a flex in a deep league. I mean, he's going to get some touches. This is an offense that really wants to rely on the running game and rely on these running backs. But if he doesn't rip off those big runs or score a touchdown, you're not getting a lot here. So flex only this week.
Well, if you're in one of those leagues where you lost CMC, Pacheco, and you need somebody to fill the gap there at running back, I do like Gibson more than probably whoever else you can pick up off a waiver wire, and this is probably going to be a run-heavy game on both sides, but that's probably as high as they'll go. He doesn't need to be thrust into your lineup just because of last week. And then now, do we have to consider a second Jets running back? Obviously, Breece Hall is as good as you can get, but what about Braylon Allen scoring 2 touchdowns last week? I know you want to pick him up and stash him, especially if you have Breece, but do you want to start him?
I mean, again, like a desperation flex in a deep league. I feel like this is a trap. People are going to put him in their lineup, and then he's going to get like 3 touches, no touchdowns more than likely. So, yeah, I'd prefer not to.
Yeah, I did say you can definitely pick him up, but it doesn't mean you have to start him. Again, the Patriots have actually been pretty good on defense. Keep Braylon Allen on your bench. All right, the Giants are going to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Devin Singletary coming off a really good game, even for fantasy. Can he repeat it in Cleveland?
I mean, I liked him last week because it was the Commanders. I put him on our Hidden Gems video, and he came through for me, thankfully. But, I mean, Cleveland on the road, like he gets the touches, so I guess he's flex worthy, but that's about it.
I'm putting him down there with Antonio Gibson. Look, you lost Pacheco. He was your RB3. You need him. Okay, but man, I feel like this is going to be more like week 1 than week 2, and Singletary is going to let you down. This is a tough defense. The Giants still are not a good offense. All right, so I really don't want to start him unless I'm desperate. Now on the Cleveland side, this should be a good matchup, but can we trust Jerome Ford now after he saw his workload majorly reduced?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but we saw this last year where he would have these games where, for whatever reason, they just didn't use him much, and then it seemed like the next game they used him again. So it's the Giants. It's a good matchup. I'm not just going to give up on Jerome Ford just because his workload went down a little bit for 1 week. Again, not a guy I feel like you have to start, but I think he's definitely like one of the better flex options.
Yeah, I think we have to consider him a low-end RB2 and maybe just a flex, but I agree. He could bounce back. It's just really a head scratcher. Why do they just refuse to make him a bell cow, or at least give him the majority of these touches? Last year was Kareem Hunt. Now all of a sudden, Deontay Foreman. I mean, you can start him, but you can't be too thrilled. And then speaking of Deontay Foreman, all of a sudden he's a thing. He actually had twice as many carries as Jerome Ford. Does that continue?
I mean, maybe not. But again, it's such a good matchup. Like, if you need Deontay Foreman this week, I think he's at least worth a flex.
He's worth a stash. He might be a guy you need given the state of running back these days, but I don't want to necessarily chase last week's usage because, like you said, it could be more of a forward week. So I just consider him an RB3 in a desperate situation again. All right, Eagles at the Saints. Two of the best backs there are. Saquon Barkley, of course, he's in your lineup. Alvin Kamara now clearly has to be in your lineup. Is there room for Jamal Williams in this suddenly hot Saints offense?
No, this is please trip over the goal line and score a touchdown only. You shouldn't need. I mean, no matter how bad you are at running back, you shouldn't be this bad not starting Jamal Williams.
Definitely going to agree here. Jamal Williams, even with how many points the Saints have scored, what has he really done? No, I don't think he even needs to be on benches.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. And for a limited time, if you download Draft Lane and sign up, we're going to credit your account with $10 that you can use on any questions you like. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play now and take advantage of that free credit.
All right, now this is going to be a tricky one. We got the Texans going to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. We don't, as of right now, know what's going on with Joe Mixon. We do know he has an ankle injury of some sort. MRI results are taking a while to come back. So, if Joe Mixon is cleared to play, based on what we've seen, are you trusting him?
This would be very tough to trust Joe Mixon. I mean, wasn't having a good game before the ankle injury. This Vikings defense looks good. I mean, I know Jordan Mason had a nice game against them, but this Vikings defense definitely looks good. He might be less than 100%, but at the same time, can you really bench Joe Mixon? So I'll put him like in the solid start category.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. Again, I wasn't ever fully buying into week one. He looked all of a sudden like he was a rookie again. But at the same time, week two, he wasn't good before he got injured, but he's still in this Texans offense. He's getting all the touches if he's healthy. So if he's fully ready to go, he's kind of a must-start RB2 unless you're stacked at running back. Now, if Mixon is either limited or out for week three, does that mean it's finally time for Cam Akers' season?
I mean, maybe Dameon Pierce if he's healthy, but I don't think it matters for me. I would rather not start Cam Akers or whoever it is.
I would like to, but I'm not going to. I mean, come on. If Mixon's out multiple weeks, okay, I'll pick up Akers and see what happens. But if he's not, there's no way one of these Texans running backs should be in a fantasy lineup. And then a very interesting thing happened in Minnesota in week two. Aaron Jones took a backseat. He was the starter, but he got fewer yards and touches than his backup. So what does that mean now for Aaron Jones heading into this matchup?
Yeah, I'm not too worried here. I mean, I think he played like 60-something% of the snaps still, so I'm not overly worried. But, I mean, Texans not a pushover run defense. Remember, it used to be like, oh, Derrick Henry gets the Texans twice. It's not those Texans anymore. So, Aaron Jones, again, I'm going to only put him in the kind of solid start range.
I mean, felt great about him after the first game and not so great now. I still think he's startable. Again, low-end RB2, I would say there's still that upside, but, he's not a guy that you feel like you have to start at this point because Ty Chandler all of a sudden outrushed Aaron Jones. So does that mean Chandler has maybe some viability?
Yeah, I think he has viability, again, as a flex type of start. So if you're looking for a flex and he's your best option, I think you could definitely do worse.
The one thing I don't like about what Chandler did is he wasn't really involved as a receiver, which is weird because he's actually a pretty good receiver out of the backfield. Not sure how this game is going to go. Look, Justin Jefferson should be fine, so I don't feel like they're going to lean on the running game too much. They might not be able to with the Texans offense, so Chandler's just kind of a risky flex. The Broncos are going to take on the Bucs this week. Can Denver get anything out of Javonte Williams finally?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, on the good news is like he took over this backfield, right? Like Jaleel McLaughlin barely touched the ball. No, any other running back barely touched the ball. The bad news is he's still running behind this offensive line in this Denver offense. It's the Bucs. They're still a good run defense. I know Vita Vea hurt his knee, so we don't know yet. But even without Vita Vea, I mean, I can't start Javonte Williams this week.
It's funny you say that because looking through the injury report and I saw Vita Vea is out. I was like, oh man, there's an opportunity. Who's Tampa Bay playing? Oh, it's Denver. I was like, I can't do it. I'm just out on this Denver offense as much as possible. This is what I worried about in the preseason. I mean, averaging, 2 yards a carry, something like that. Can't do it. Can we do it with Rachaad White, who also has not been great, but especially is losing touches to his backup? The fact that it's the Broncos, does that make you more encouraged?
It does. I mean, he still had 10 carries to Irving's 7, and he still ran 67% of the routes, which was the third highest on the week among running backs. It's just Lions have a good run defense, and Aiden Hutchinson absolutely wrecked that game for the Bucs. I mean, I know they won, but the offense wasn't that good. So I think Rachaad White bounces back this week. I think he's still a solid start.
Well, I think he's startable. I really thought he would be more involved as a receiver last week. Didn't really happen. I don't know if he'll be more involved as a receiver this week because it's Denver. I mean, they should be able to just sit back and run the ball, right? I think White is more on the low end of the RB2 spectrum at this point until further notice. And then Bucky Irving, I don't know if I can be much higher on him than Rachaad White, but I kind of feel he's the same, right? He's a startable RB2 because I think they will be able to run the ball here in this game.
Ooh, I don't know. This feels very risky for me. Again, only 7 carries last week. He didn't take over the lead back job. I mean, maybe he does this week, but I would prefer not to start Bucky Irving, even against the Broncos.
Packers going to Tennessee to take on the Titans this week. Well, Josh Jacobs definitely asserted himself as a workhorse, that's for sure. You can just go ahead and keep him in your lineup. What about Tony Pollard? He might have to play the role of bell cow if Tyjae Spears is out.
I mean, even with Tyjae Spears, he's kind of been playing the role of bell cow. It's kind of going under the radar, but Tony Pollard getting a lot of usage in this offense. Not scared of this defense, not at least not this run defense here. So, I mean, look, Tony Pollard maybe doesn't have the highest upside because he's in this Titans offense, but he's definitely, startable.
I'll admit, I really wasn't crazy about Pollard during draft season. Didn't take him too much here and there, an underdog. I am now firmly in on him, at least for this week. I am definitely in on him. I'm going to go ahead and say if I have Pollard, I'm firing him up for sure this week. Now, part of that might be if Spears is out or limited. He did have an ankle issue also last week. Doesn't sound serious, but he might miss week 3. If he doesn't, can you even consider him?
No, I mean, maybe less than 100%, already not getting a lot of touches. You cannot start Tyjae Spears.
Exactly how I feel. I'm out on Spears. I don't even know if you need to hold him anymore at this point, and that's why I'm in on Pollard. All right, now the Bears at the Colts. We really have to start asking ourselves, what do we do with DeAndre Swift? Because that Bears offense didn't look good, but the rushing game was almost worse than the passing game.
Well, I'll say this. Week 1, Joe Mixon, 30 carries, 150 yards against the Colts. Last week, Josh Jacobs, 32 carries, 150 yards against the Colts. Maybe DeAndre Swift this week, or maybe not. I cannot start DeAndre Swift right now.
I don't think it's him. It seems to be this offensive line. I mean, I know everyone just expects, Caleb Williams to dominate from the first game of his NFL career. He doesn't even have time to drop back, much less find an open receiver. DeAndre Swift, there's nowhere to run. So I know the matchup is tempting, but man, we need to see something better than this. So don't start Swift. Now, when the Chargers take on the Steelers, there's going to be a lot of action in the run game. In fact, there might not be very many passes thrown at all. Let's start with the guy who now, I don't know, is he just an absolute must start if you have J.K. Dobbins?
I mean, I don't see how you bench him. It's the Steelers. It's definitely going to be the toughest test so far for J.K. Dobbins, but at the same time, he's running so well right now. Again, unless you have 2 of those guys that you mentioned in the beginning, how do you bench J.K. Dobbins? He's definitely a strong start.
Let's just come out with it. You got J.K. Dobbins. I'm not going to tell you to sit him. Just start him. See if he keeps it going. I mean, he's not even necessarily getting the most touches in this backfield, and somehow he's one of the leading rushers in the NFL. Yeah, it's not the Panthers, but still, you got Dobbins, just start him. And I'll tell you what, maybe J.K. Dobbins doesn't put up a 100-yard game again. He very well could, but I feel pretty good that he can go higher than his current line on Underdog. 57.5 rushing yards. So look, if you make your picks early in the week, you lock this in because it might go up. I'm taking the higher. You can take this pick and combine it with this week's new customer free pick. That's Aaron Rodgers just going higher than 0.5 total yards. That's right. Free pick there. Combine these two picks and you have a good chance to win. Make sure you use promo code ENDGAME when you first sign up, because besides these free picks, you also still get that bonus cash on your first deposit. Now, despite Dobbins breaking out, Gus Edwards is not only still there, he's getting more carries than J.K. Dobbins in this offense. He's just not really doing a lot with it. Can you trust him against the Steelers?
I don't see how you can. He couldn't do anything with 18 carries against the Panthers and did nothing. Now the Steelers, you cannot start Gus Edwards.
Yeah, as much as Dobbins has been one of the best surprises of this season, the same token, I think Gus Edwards has been one of the biggest disappointments. So he's probably somebody you don't really need to hold as long as Dobbins is healthy. Now, we know the Steelers want to run the ball. That's pretty obvious. Let's start with Najee Harris. Will he have any room to run against this Chargers defense?
Yeah, he should be fine here. I mean, I think Najee is kind of what he is. He's got a okay floor because he'll get the touches, but not going to score a lot of touchdowns, so the upside isn't there. So, again, Najee for me, more like a flex play.
Going to agree here. Najee is getting volume, but this offense is just not that exciting. Again, it's the touchdowns that are lacking here. So, Najee, high-end RB3. And then with Jaylen Warren, I mean, I know he was hurt in the preseason, but he's done a lot of nothing so far. Is he even on the radar?
Barely. I really, again, I barely feel good about Najee. I can't feel good about Warren. I'm not starting Warren.
Not starting Warren either. You can find upside somewhere else, anywhere else, not here. Dolphins are going to get the Seahawks with a little bit of extra time to recover from that Thursday night massacre. Raheem Mostert may be able to play. If he does, do you think that he could benefit from, maybe wanting to run the ball a lot more than usual?
I mean, maybe, but Mike McDaniel talking about they're just going to give Devon Achane the ball more. So I think Achane is the only running back I want in this backfield, especially Mostert coming off an injury. I'm not going to start him this week.
Exactly. Definitely a little hesitant to be in on anyone in this offense right now other than Achane, Tyreek Hill. Let's see how it plays out. Road game against Seattle. Even if Mostert plays, I'm not playing him. Now, we really hope that Kenneth Walker is able to come back this week, but we're not really sure. So, if Walker is activated, is he a plug-and-play? No doubt.
I think he has to be. I mean, he's going to be the workhorse running back again. If he plays, not worried about Charbonnet, stealing touches or anything. I'm not scared of this matchup. I think if Kenneth Walker is good to go and he plays, he's a strong start.
If Walker is good to go, I'm not questioning it. I'm definitely starting him in this matchup. But if he's not, then we got Charbonnet again. Scored a touchdown. Not that great on the ground. What do you think about him if he's got the backfield to himself or if he doesn't?
Well, if he doesn't have the backfield to himself, no, you have to bench him. But if Walker is out again, he's definitely a solid start. He's going to get the volume. Again, the efficiency probably won't be there, but he's got a chance to score.
Right. That touchdown upside is always going to be there, as we've seen, and he will catch some passes. So if Walker's back, he's a firm sit, just a stash. If Walker's out, startable but not a must. Panthers taking on the Raiders this week. Now, before we immediately say no, maybe there's hope for Carolina because Andy Dalton will be the quarterback, not Bryce Young. Does that give you hope for Chuba Hubbard?
It gives me hope. I still can't put him in the, solid to strong start category because it is still the Panthers. And, we're still talking about Andy Dalton here. Let's not get too excited, but it's the Raiders. He's getting the touches. So I will say Chuba Hubbard seems like a good flex start this week.
Yeah, I agree. I still don't want to start a Panther. And honestly, the Raiders weren't as bad defensively as I thought they would be last week. I really thought Derrick Henry would run all over them. He's fine, but nothing amazing. Chuba Hubbard, man, only if you're hurting at running back. And I know everyone's ready to just get rid of Zamir White. Again, didn't do anything for fantasy. but he was at least involved more than he was in week 1, believe it or not. Maybe because it's the Panthers, is there a shot here?
Only because it's the Panthers, I'm going to say he's a flex start, but only a flex start. I mean, okay, on the plus side, he caught some passes, but again, only 9 carries. Like, we need to see 18, 20 plus carries from this guy. So only a flex start because the matchup is good.
Yeah, I really didn't expect that the Raiders would be more pass heavy. I mean, I get they were behind last week against Baltimore before they caught up and won, but still, really thought they was focused on the run game more. So can't start Zeus unless you're really, again, hurting at running back because you lost Pacheco or something like that. And then Alexander Mattison, again, a touchdown. Again, not much else.
No, he had the very hard to achieve stat line, I think, of 3 carries for -1 yard and a touchdown. That is hard to do. I'm not starting Alexander Mattison.
No, there's really no reason to start Mattison. The 49ers taking on the Rams. 2 teams that are decimated by injuries lately. But look, Jordan Mason has done such a good job. We're saying if you got him, especially if you lost CMC, you're just starting him, no questions asked. And as bad as the Rams look right now, Kyren Williams is still a must start. Next up, the Lions taking on the Cardinals in the desert. Well, let's start with David Montgomery. Jahmyr Gibbs, we're still saying, is a must start. What about Monty?
I mean, look, he scored 2 weeks in a row. I mean, granted, you got a little lucky in week 1, but you didn't get lucky last week. He was involved and he scored, and now it's the Cardinals. I think David Montgomery is a solid start this week.
A guy who's out there definitely getting carries every week with strong touchdown upside. As the injuries pile up here and there, guys disappoint, he just kind of steadily moves up the list of guys that are just solid RB2. So that's what he is. And then last week, James Conner did go off. Can he do it against this Detroit defense?
I have my doubts. Detroit, one thing about Detroit, they're terrible against the pass, but they're still really, really good. That run defense is very good. But James Conner is going to get the touches. He'll catch some passes. He could score. So again, a solid start.
Yeah, I don't feel he'll boom this week necessarily, but there aren't that many running backs you're going to just put over him. In a 12-team league, he's still a high-end RB2. Now, Ravens taking on the Cowboys in Big D. Derrick Henry, not an absolute must start because, well, he just hasn't really gone off and he's had some good matchups here. So, is there a chance you're sitting Derrick Henry this week?
I mean, you'd have to have 2 really good options to sit Derrick Henry. I mean, he's kind of given us, I mean, maybe not exactly what we want, but he's scored in each of the first 2 games. You know when they get near the goal line, they're going to give it to Derrick Henry. He's still getting a decent amount of carries. So again, I'm going to just call him a solid start.
For the most part, if I have Henry, I'm still keeping it in my lineup because even though he hasn't had these huge runs yet, big yardage, I think he's just going to score almost every single week, and he's getting you that floor. Dallas defense didn't look that good last week, not even against the run. So for the most part, Henry's in my lineup. Now what about Justice Hill? He's still part of this offense. You think there's a chance he's involved as a pass catcher? Maybe the Ravens fall behind.
I mean, maybe, but has this Cowboys offense really impressed us yet? So I'm not doing it with Justice Hill. I'm sitting him.
No, this feels still more like a very deep league kind of bench stash, a bye week fill-in. You shouldn't need him. And then now the Cowboys seem to have gone to one of those fun 3-man running back committees. The leader is still technically Ezekiel Elliott. So does Zeke still have any relevance because, I don't know, touchdown upside?
That's it. You're just hoping for a touchdown here. So if you're in a non-PPR league, a touchdown-only league, or you're extremely desperate and just praying he scores a touchdown, sure. But in most cases, no.
Or a Cowboys fan, or, still living in 2019. Look, okay. I don't want to say Zeke has 0 value in fantasy, but come on. Deuce Vaughn is now getting involved. Rico Dowdle got a little bit more involved. You really don't want to start Zeke. All right, now the Chiefs are going to take on the Falcons. Here's the big question here. What happens in that Chiefs backfield? Isaiah Pacheco out several weeks. Is Carson Steele the next man up?
I think he is. I think he's going to take more of that Pacheco role. Looked good in camp. He's looked good so far this year when given opportunities. But I can't say Carson Steele is anything more than a flex start this week. It's not a fantastic matchup. And look, P. Ryan will probably be mixed in and maybe even Kareem Hunt if that happens. So a flex start.
Obviously, not going to be a one-to-one replacement for Pacheco. I worry that the Chiefs will just turn to a full-blown committee again. Just pass it more, do something to compensate here. Look, Steele will have touchdown upside, but in a PPR league, I really wouldn't want to start him. He would just be kind of a desperation play. Now, Samaje Perine might have a role in a PPR league, but is there a ceiling?
No, I don't even know if there's a floor. I mean, I don't think his role is really going to change. It's going to be like third down, pass catching back when we need you guy. Like, I'm not starting Perine.
Agree. Again, this isn't going to be a big boost for him. It's really just going to be a drop off for the Chiefs' backfield, I think. So Perine, we shouldn't have to go there, not in week 3. Now, Monday night, we're going to be treated to 2 Monday night football games, the first of which should be a good one. Got Jacksonville going to Buffalo. Now, Travis Etienne looked like he was losing some steam, but then kind of got it back with a Tank Bigsby injury in week 2. Where do you rank Etienne in this matchup?
I really like Etienne this week. I'm going to talk about him on our Booms video, so I guess you know how I feel about him. But I think this is a great spot for Etienne this week. I really like him in this game. I think Etienne's a strong start.
Yeah, I mean, the Bigsby injury doesn't seem super serious, but even if he's back, I think you should still feel good enough. But Etienne got touchdown upside. I don't think they're going to get blown out of the water by this Buffalo team, so Etienne is still a strong start. Now, James Cook seems like a pretty strong start coming off a 3-touchdown performance. Is he a lock in this matchup?
I mean, pretty close. Don't expect another 3-touchdown game, of course, but I think if you got James Cook, you're probably starting him. He's a strong start.
Well, if I have James Cook, I have no reason not to keep him in my lineup. He's already matched his rushing touchdown output from last season and the season before. Don't count on those touchdowns, but man, he's looking good. He's going to be more of a focal point here. I have Cook. I'm starting him. And week 3 will end with the Commanders taking on the Bengals. Brian Robinson Jr. has looked really good for 2 games in a row. Does he keep it going in Cincinnati?
I don't see why not. Cincinnati run defense doesn't scare me. They may be without B.J. Hill, probably their best run stopper. Brian Robinson looks good. I mean, touchdowns are always questionable in this offense, but the floor is so high. I think Brian Robinson, a strong start.
Man, if he had reached the end zone last week, I think he got more notice of just how good he's been. I'm going to continue to be a big fan of B-Rob and say if you got him, I'm starting him, especially in this game. Now, what about Austin Eckler? Still showing he's got a little bit of juice. He's kind of involved. Where does he fall? Is he at least a flex option?
Yeah, he'll probably always be a flex option for me because, he's a decent floor in PPR leagues. He gets enough touches here, a flex option.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I mean, in a PPR league, you can get by with him. In standard league, probably not, though. I don't know what his touchdown upside is in this offense. I mean, nobody scored a touchdown last week, so Eckler, flex if you need. And then Cincinnati, not much of a run game at all. I guess Zach Moss is the only one worth talking about. Is he worth playing?
I mean, it's the Commanders. I feel like almost everybody's worth playing. Look at Devin Singletary last week. So, look, Zach Moss doesn't have the highest ceiling, but I think he's fine as a flex start.
Only because of the matchup, I think you can consider him. But yeah, if he doesn't find the end zone, you're probably going to be disappointed here. We have start-sit advice at every single position, along with waiver wire, trades, and more. Everything you need to know to help win in week 3. It's all in this week's playlist.